Imagine if you knew all of your entire soul and oversoul history, all the memories, all of the past lives, galactic interfacings, potential councils you may have been on, missions, and most importantly, your oversoul purpose, which is known as a scroll. Imagine if you knew all of that so that you would know how deeply, you would know yourself deeply, who you were at soul level. Part of the problem of being human, of course, is that we get cut off from our soul records and we just have these threads and we're trying to navigate life, just trying to do the best that we can, picking up the pieces of our journey together. Well, what I'd love to share with you today is imagine if you knew all of that, what that might do for your life and for who you were becoming. I want to introduce you to a concept that we've just been pulling down from the Melchizedek Mystical Library, known as the Soul Schematic Sequence, which is a sort of a Christed soul profiling system, and it's a stream that's been coming through Alea and myself through bridging into a Krystic consciousness stream. We call that the soul of our Nurael, who bridges us up into the higher realms of the Emerald Order. And what's been coming through is just extraordinary precision. And what I want to do today is potentially share with you a sample reading of the Soul Schematic Sequence. And before I do that, I want to just share a little bit about how this came about. Is that, obviously we've been working with people a lot on their shadows. And as someone moves through their childhood woundings, generally the next phase is to start to look into the ancestral lineages and you start clearing out your ancestral lines. Next line is that you start tuning into past lives and you start walking on these more threads that are in your higher consciousness. However, of course, a lot of people don't necessarily get to do the higher consciousness stuff. They're still working through childhood issues. But some people, are ready for that. They have been working on their shadows for a long time and are really ready for that next level. And so this is what prompted us to, start working, interfacing with the various orders who are bringing this down. In this case, it's the Melchizedek Elohim Council, and to bridge in this frequency and consciousness for people. And so I've got a sample report that I'd love to share with you today so you can understand the precision of what's birthing. Obviously, this sample report will be someone anonymous. I've given them a code name. And we're going to go through and take a look as a summary. I'm not going to read everything, but I'm just going to walk you through it on another little, on a screen share so you can tap into the precision of this Krystic profiling system on someone's, soul schematic records on their, we call it the Soul Schematic Sequence because it's basically giving a sequence of all of the full totality of their vertical soul history, soul records, and what they need to know, and all the questions that you as a spiritually evolving person might want to know. So I'm going to bring up a screen in a minute and take a look at the Soul Schematic Sequence. Okay, so here we are inside the Soul Schematic Sequence. As you can see, this is a very chunky document. It's 23 pages, so it's obviously going to take a while to read in full, so I might not read it in total, but what I want to do is go through this sequence for you. The first thing that you might want to know is your core soul blueprint. So I'm going to read this person's core soul blueprint. I'm going to call this person Womb Flame 3, obviously a female, and our objective here is to understand the soul origin, the lineage, and the core capacities of her soul. And so the object here is to reconnect Womb Flame 3 to eternal essence, her memory field, and elemental architecture, ground awareness of her long-form service and karmic journey, begin healing forgotten gifts, and restoring mission frequency. And so let's just go through this so you can kind of get a sense of the type of thing that is possible now. You are encoded as a sophionic harmonic keeper, a soul designed not to lead from the front, but to harmonize emotional and spiritual environments through presence, through care and embodied gentleness. Your architecture radiates the sacred feminine principle and room resonant frequency that magnetizes, soothes, and reveals. Your oversoul transmits through a crystalline ruby tone with shimmering white flame overlays. This marks you as one seeded through the Sophionic arc lineages with deep connection to inner earth priestess orders and Lemurian sanctuary systems. Your soul signature expresses a triple spiral, one descending from your oversoul, one rotating through your womb field, one rising from Gaia's crystalline core into your spine. These spirals carry your eternal function as a living harmonic. You restore what has been fractured by gently remembering it into coherence. You're not here to force alignment. You are the frequency that realigns. And then we would take a look at, someone's elemental makeup. In this case, womb flame 3 is 40% water, 30% earth, 20% ether, and 10% fire. And she is most powerful when you trust. Your emotional field is sacred technology, not a weakness to hide, but a divine instrument of healing, guidance, and grid correction. The next thing that Leah and I were trying to figure out what might be interesting for people was multidimensional strengths. So this is the skills and strengths that you have lifetime after lifetime because they're actually in your soul. And so in Womb Flame 3's example, your soul carries archetypical strengths that span lifetimes and timelines and dimensions. These aren't learned, they're remembered. They express themselves not through effort, but through your presence. You don't need to do them, you are them. And what follows is a deeper remembering of what lives within you and how it's really moving through your daily life. So the first one was a womb guardian here, stabilizing the frequency of others, being energetically coherent in your body. And you may have noticed children or clients settling just by being near you, women opening up around you with emotion they didn't plan to express, people breathing differently. So there's a piece on being a womb guardian. And that's great because Womb Flame 3 is in the healing arts. And so this allows her to get the precision that, hey, maybe I could focus and specialize in womb healing. And then, of course, coming down, another soul gift is her emotional transmuter. You just don't feel deeply, you transform what you feel. Pain, grief, shame, these move through you and presence becomes compassion and insight or clarity. You're not overwhelmed by emotion because it's too much. You're overwhelmed when you forget that it's part of your alchemy. This has been great because she knows that she is here to transmute energy and emotion just by being herself. She doesn't have to try for that, which makes her great in kind of group settings. And this is what gave her the confidence to start doing circle work. And so she's now starting to do circles with women and, allowing this beautiful opening up and transmuting just by holding the shamanic container, which is beautiful. She's a timeline repair weaver. You sense when something's off before words are spoken. You can feel the subtle wrongness of a choice, a relationship, a conversation. And when you name your truth, timelines shift. Your presence recalibrates karmic momentum. You don't need to fix people. You just need to stand in coherence and loops around you. So that's nice. She's able to, work through and clear timeline corruptions by being, herself, a timeline architect. Feminine mirror. A reflection. She reflects what others have gotten in themselves, especially other women. She brings to the surface suppressed, longing, buried pain, unattended worth. All of it begins to stir in her presence. And that's definitely another part of this piece that's given her the confidence to start some more shamanic circle work, which is great. People open deeply to you or react defensively without clear reason. Other women may admire, project onto you, or retreat from you based on what energy brings up in them. And that's nice to know that, you don't have to take things personally. And this was a big one. Your gifts are not meant to be hidden because she probably, as she looks back, she was probably hiding a little bit. And you're not here to try harder. You're here to stand truer. The strengths are ancient. They were given to you before birth. And so, it's given her permission to be seen and to be moving through. In terms of dormant in her system, but still kind of activating, toning, voice transmission, and then, field holding for women's circles and Kira aid missions. And this was something that's come online now. Then if I was to, inquire for myself, I'd want to know about my soul journey of light. What has been my trajectory? And so this section goes into a little bit of that. Your light trajectory has been devoted by sanctuary and subtle mastery, needed to be in the spotlight to transform in the field. You work in the quiet, in the heart and the breath and the invisible harmonics that hold people together. Across timelines, you served as an emotional equilibrium. In this life, memories don't just live in your mind, they live in your body, your voice. And in particular, we covered three key service lifetimes: Lemurian Pacific Temple Grove, worked as a breath emotional harmonics keeper, using sound, wind, and water to restore coherence. And this life, and then I started to link it to how it tones up, connects to this life. And so we started to put in this, your sensitivity to tone, breath, and atmosphere of the room isn't random. It's the ancient technology, which gives her the confidence to trust her intuition. Then we have the Avalon half-sister line, held seasonal rites and relationship sanctuaries around inner child restoration and female grieving, known as someone others came to not for dramatic transformation, but feel safe enough to who they were. Your work, and currently she works with children, families, and emotionally burnt out women. And this is the exact frequency that she was in the past. So it's nice to put all those things together. There's a post-Egyptian temple steward. You help rebuild feminine rights temples after the collapse of corrupted masculine systems. You carried forward the knowledge of purity, breath, and sacred truth when the structures around you fell into shadow. And so this affects you today, rebuilding spaces energetically, relationship, or emotionally. She's here to draw integrity, safety, and ritual into spaces. That's designed directly tied to this priestess coding, and that's giving her this confidence to move into this aspect of life. Pattern across all timelines. You worked off stage, not because you weren't powerful, but because your power didn't seek attention. That's nice. She does quiet work, but effective work. And then, of course, you can't look into your shadows of light if you don't look into your soul shadows. So we take a look at where there's been lifetimes or experiences of the soul where, the essence rejected, misused, or diminished. And so here, exile and emotional abandonment. You were cast out by families, tribes, or temple orders when you refused to conform, carried the role of emotional truth teller, and your insight disturbs the status quo. You were exiled or erased. Affects her now by not being able to necessarily speak her full truth, fear of being too much. Pattern of self-editing, which means just checking what one says, and group dynamics. And so imagine knowing all of that. This comes from, something that's in your soul. It's a pattern. And I think one of the things that the Soul Schematic Sequence does is it really brings to the highlight some of the, hidden shadows that might be playing out in our system. Energetic overcaring and karmic taking. In many lifetimes, you gave more than you received, placed in healing, nurturing roles where your worth was defined what you could do for others. I mean, how many of us in the healing arts have got that? We get a lot of our self-worth by how we heal other people, not by who you were inherently. You absorbed the pain of others if it were your own, believing it was your spiritual duty to do so. How does that affect many of us today? Okay, it's something that all healers and coaches need to work through. Sometimes feel guilty for charging for your gifts. That's how it affects you today in this lifetime. And so when you can go back and do some clearings on that, maybe that can lift and you feel less guilty for doing it. I'm hoping that's working for her. You may default into emotional labor relationships, or your nervous system can register as unsafe until rewired. She also had lifetimes of silence and minimization, especially in patriarchal temple systems or male dominant societies. Your voice was either forbidden or co-opted when you spoke from your womb wisdom. How this lives now, you may struggle to name your offerings on your own spiritual authority. You may apologize, second guess your instincts, or wait for permission that never comes. Yeah, so that's another one. Another lifetime that came up as shadow was a Roman era lifetime as a mystic and concubine. You held spiritual sight and sensual wisdom, but were kept as a concubine by a temple ally nobleman who revered your gifts in secret but denied them publicly. Residual creates now a residual fear of being loved for what you provide, not who you are. Creates tension between desiring partnership and fearing loss of autonomy. So it's so amazing, isn't it, how some of these shadows that are playing up in past lives create these little threads of imprinted programs in this lifetime. I could keep going through it, but I think you get the picture here. Atlantean lifetime healer priestess creates now difficulty trusting others with your original ideas. Victorian era lifetime domestic caretaker, lived in servitude with a noble husband. Again, creates guilt around charging for work. Creates subtle avoidance of claiming leadership or taking up space, and emotional loyalty to people or systems that don't nourish you. When you've got this information, there's a precision to how you can start doing clearing work. And then we've got a section on the top 10 notable Earth incarnations. That could be, interesting if you wanted to know. And this case for her, Lemurian water priestess, Egyptian sacred midwife. And then what I've always like to do with the councils is I always like to bring it back to what's going on in this life now. There's no point knowing all these past life pieces unless there's something you can apply it to today, right? So figuring out how each lifetime affects you today, because it's actually caught up in your soul records. So you stabilize threshold moments, grief, divorce, identity shifts, because your soul has practiced holding people between worlds. Interesting to know, right? Gothic France, fledgling mystic, 1940s Britain child evacuee. And this is, your nervous system is hyper attuned to belonging and safety. Ancient China, herbalist and dream worker. And then Roman era, mystic and concubine, which we covered earlier. Post-Atlantean healer, priestess. Victorian servant and domestic caretaker. And early Polynesian matrilineal leader, part of a coastal village, revered the grandmother lineage. Yeah, that's all the lifetimes that are of note. And then we can go into your galactic lineage and star lives. It's always important that your spiritual lineage. And this is what this section does. Your galactic lineage is your spiritual lineage. So in this case, Womb Flame 3 comes from the Palladian water lineages. She carries the codes of Palladian water temples, streams of emotional purity, sacred sexuality, and harmonic song weaving. And so then I always like to bring it back how this lives now. You sense when something's off vibrationally before it's named. Your emotional body is the primary tuning system. Sensitivity is a design feature, not a flaw. Then she's got lineages into the Venusian temple streams, inner sanctions of the Venusian harmonic cultures, and how this affects life now. You don't need to fix or teach. You embody softness, physical tenderness and beauty. Sacred relationship feels like home. You're here to model what it looks like when it's fully cellular, when there's no apology for softness. Got an Arcturian lineage as well on her galactic lives, emotional architects. And if the theme for Womb Flame 3 is a lot of emotional resonance going through, particularly the emotional resonance architects. And then how this plays out, she can read emotional geometry, why relationships, teams, or groups feel misaligned before others see it, intuitively know where to place a word, breath, or pause. So we do these spiritual lineages here so you can see how these things that you inherently know about yourself, where they come from, where those gifts come from. Now, I think a really important thing to know about yourself is your pre-birth soul agreements. This is your essentially your guiding light. Everyone wants to know their spiritual purpose, right? And if you don't know your spiritual purpose, you don't have the lighthouse on. The lighthouse is your direction, and that stores here in the high heart. And if you don't have that switched on, you can really feel you're confused about which way to kind of go. And so here go her Womb Flame 3's pre-birth soul agreements to restore emotional belonging. And lineages fractured by trauma, abandonment, or addiction. And in this case, she had to experience being in a relationship with addiction, and then has now got the codes to be able to do that. And so she's doing great work now with women affected by trauma, abandonment, or addiction, to experience early life betrayal and confusion, so she could become later a refuge for others. Isn't it amazing to experience the challenges that we experience as when we're young actually are important, so that later you can serve? It all makes sense later. To initiate your mission after becoming a mother in alignment with divine maternal codes, to serve the carers, the forgotten, the feminine, grieving her worth, and to walk into business not as a salesperson, but as a sacred bridge, to model a new frequency of offering, exchange, and receiving. And currently, she is working through all of these pieces and she had another career and is currently transitioning from career into the healing arts after doing a lot of internal work and starting to live in more full blooming alignment, and is noticing that as she takes the steps, each step is supported because it's in full alignment with her pre-birth soul agreements. So let's carry on through that. Embodied integration, leadership roles and service roles. We've got this next section, current station of consciousness. So this is important to recognize, because this is your someone's embodied station of consciousness, where your soul is currently streaming from and where it's anchoring into your body. And in this case, it's upper bands of the fourth dimension in the first layers of embodied 5D consciousness. Your soul knows who you are, but your body is still learning how to trust knowing in practical, grounded ways. You experience multidimensional awareness in dream time with clients and presence. You receive insights before others speak up. You feel timelines before they arrive. But when structure, money, identity, or responsibility enters the room, part of your body still reaches out for an old survival map, one where safety meant staying small, agreeable, and invisible. Then the self-doubt, the people-pleasing, the internal pressure to get it right or not, be a burden. These are echoes of old contracts, not who you are now. she's passing through a threshold movement from sensitive seeker to embodied transmitter. It's not about doing more. It's about letting your field speak first. So these are all great things to know. This is where this is where someone's consciousness is stationed. Then we take a look at their karma. It's really important to know how much karma you've got. Karmic field is almost entirely earth-based, which was nice. She's got no galactic karma. And relational in origin means it's all relationship-based. She's not, this soul is not carrying any distortions from galactic conquest, AI hosting, or dimensional inversion. So she's a very pure soul, and it's mainly just karmic relationship stuff. There are a lot of souls who are caught up in, power conquests in the galactic realms and hosting artificial intelligence consciousness streams in their soul. There's a lot of people who are caught up in that and are caught up in inversions with their soul matrix hosting from AI. So if you've got that, it's really, really important to know so you can start to clear it. She's cleared 83% of her earth karma, which is great. Right now she knows where she needs to sort of work on and the direction she needs to go. Most of the heaviest imprints around abandonment, emotional servitude, and suppression have already been metabolized through her motherhood healing path and your choice to show up for others even when you felt invisible. What remains is residual echoes, not contracts. Okay. Her karmic threads to go relate to caretaker distortions, where she sacrificed her own needs to preserve harmony, vows of emotional invisibility, and scarcity patterns is what she's here to work through. So imagine knowing exactly the ballpark of what you need to work through to resolve your karma. And so it's great for her to know that these patterns do not need another life to resolve. She's at the stage where they can be released through embodied value anchoring, pricing integrity, and relationship truth. Your karma is no longer in charge of your path. It's her ally. Right, and now I always thought it'd be good to have a focus for evolution. Where does Womb Flame 3 need to focus on? And if anyone's interested in getting these types of this precision on your soul, this is where you want to really focus upon, right? And so we will stream in from the Melchizedek Mystical Library exactly what the councils believe you need to focus on to evolve. And so here we have the value embodiment, in her case, to own her own value conceptually, somatically in her body, right? And then, the second thing is to work on her sacral crown alignment, right? To collapse the old belief that money and divinity are in conflict. How many of us have had that one in the past or are still working through it, right? It's important to kind of get that alignment done. This is a real focus for her now. Now she knows it, right? Her sacral knows how to generate, your crown knows how to receive, and your body's the bridge. And she needs to start reweaving that through her system so that it becomes an act of devotion, and financial clarity becomes a part of her embodiment path. And finally, key thing is voice activation. You've always known truth. What is new now is you're ready to speak it without shrinking, without softening, without explaining your edges to those unwilling to meet you there. So good guidance. Oversoul directive, let the emergence be soft, be clear, let your field speak louder than your marketing. When you stop trying to convince and simply anchor truth, those seeking you will remember why they came. Beautiful. So that's the direction of priority focus for evolution. Next up, it's also, I feel it's important is, getting a DNA activation status. In this case, Womb Flame 3 is her DNA is operating at 8-strand active capacity. The 9th is beginning to pulse. Activation is primarily occurring in the emotional, intuitive, interrelational strands, those linked to the Palladian and Venusian harmonic keys. Her 9th strand is related to voice expression, womb growth, leadership, quantum nourishment, currently latent but is ready to ignite, and she's been given here some guidance as to what she needs to do that. So, yep, if anyone's interested, you can find out your DNA activation status. There's this very detailed report, Soul Schematic Sequence. Okay, so we've got next thing, consciousness stream and anchoring. We go into, where her oversoul is anchored. It's anchored into the 5th dimensional field, streaming through her emotional, intuitive body, weaving between heart, sacral, and center and high heart. She's not anchored into the crown by default, but the soul prefers to ground upward rather than descend downward. And this is part of her harmonic design. And she streams most constantly during silence and nature and service. We're anchoring. We're all about, Alea and I are all about embodied ascension. This means bringing your higher consciousness down, bringing your oversoul down into your body. And so we want to find out where are the pieces where the anchoring of the oversoul becomes challenged, right? She enters mental loops, internalizes projections and confusions, and tries to fix and attune instead of just be. Okay, that's when the stream goes. So that's good to know. She's primarily anchored in the fifth dimensional harmonic fields with access to 6D resonance templates. The sophionic emotional intuitive grid centered in the heart bridge and the occasional oscillation of 6D crystalline song line codes, especially during vocal womb flame, sound healing, or deep communion with earth. You're not streaming mental Akashic data as yet by design, but she's here to anchor heart stream intelligence, not the cerebral transmissions. Yeah, useful to know. Then we take a look at your spiritual orders and lineages. We've got 3 of them here: the Sophionic Priest orders, the Venetian healing rings, and the Temple of Breath, the Lemurian stream. And so we give you your exactly lineages you're connected to, and we touch upon, multidimensional gifts and abilities. And so her energy field is deeply regulating without effort. People feel safer around you, not because you tell them what to do, but because your body remembers wholeness and theirs entrains to it. Chaos settles, grief softens, and breath deepens. She's I think it's a I've got a little typo there, the womb flame, but it looks like she's here to stabilize the womb. Emotional transmutation. She's a feminine resonance mirror, womb-based, and she's womb-based empathic channeling. And this has helped her to be able to get keyed in to focusing on women and especially the womb space and the sacral field. She has subtle voice codes as well, and she has caregiver and healing templates. She carries unique codes for repairing burnout, depletion, and emotional collapse. And in this case, in her life, she's definitely had to work through that herself. So now she's got codes for them, both on her soul, but in her embodied experience. You are a sanctuary for those who are holding too much. When they sit with you, they will begin to remember what rest feels like. Your work is essential for healing the healer and remembering the feminine right to rhythm. So for this, it gives her natural threads of who she can focus on. Women in burnout who need womb healing and need to rest and reintegration. This is giving her a real clear target audience to work on. Her current life mission thread. So we find out what's currently going on with your current life, and the mission here came to be a living sanctuary, a stable heart field for those who become emotionally displaced, energetically overextended, or spiritually disorientated in a world that asks too much and offers too little in return. Your mission is not to do healing work. Your mission is to be the frequency that heals it. So it's really nice to know. You're here to model new feminine business model template, one where healing, rest, and reciprocity and intuitive rhythm replace coercion, burnout, urgency, and overextension. You're not meant to scale endlessly. You are here to deepen honestly so others can train to your embodiment with an effort. Okay, so this is a type of precision that can really help refine your kind of clear direction for life. Then we start looking at some clearing, contracts, and ritual embodiment. We first up take a look at timeline navigation abilities. So we explore that. We explore your light body and auric field. So do a full scan. And we take a look at what's going on in the light body and auric field. 70% of distortions have been cleared. Your emotional body is self-healing. Auric field is beginning to organize into stable tordial flow, a dynamic spiral that breathes energy into and out of coherence with your truth. This tordial structure will stabilize, and it gives you a clear guidance of what you need to do. Daily breath work and vocal sound release, clear energetic exchange systems, boundaries around her healing practice around time, pricing, and emotional availability that protect your center without closing your heart. She was giving a little bit too much away. Who knows that story as well? What remains is a recalibration of field into sovereign reciprocity. Your aura is not meant to be a sponge. You're meant to be a sanctuary, alive, clear, sovereign, nourishing for all those that enter it with respect. Then we have an initiation ritual. This is an Oversoul ritual. And as part of this reading, as well as, bringing this down and getting it all down in a written document, we do a live session. And in the live session, there's an initiation we bring through the sort of initiation and do a oversoul descent initiation, where we start to drop the oversoul down deeper into the architecture. We start to establish the internal architecture, the spinal ladder of light. I help activate that, and the spinal ladder of light holds the infrastructure and architecture for the descent of the oversoul. And so we start to do that on our live session, about a couple of hours session. Now, core wound healing and healing trajectory. This is the big key. The core wound, for anyone, if you've got that precision, then you know exactly what you need to work on. The core wounds are the deeper wounds in one's life. And womb flame 3's example, emotional abandonment and feminine minimization. And so that's the core wound that her whole thing is about, and what she needs to work out, shows it where it holds up in her life. In this life, it shows up as holding back your truth, undercharging or overgiving in work, feeling invisible unless you're performing care, hesitating to speak, create, or lead unless someone invites you first. So these can be resolved when that core wound gets resolved. And this is what the healing path is all about. Okay, healing trajectory. Much of the wound has been transmuted. You began healing the moment you became a mother, the moment you held another's pain with collapsing. So it's nice. Shadow contracts. Sometimes we all have these contracts to experience shadow. And she's got this service without receiving contract, inherited from her mother's line, and visibility shame contract from early religious lifetimes, where she was publicly shamed for intuitive knowing. And so this, what obstructs her life: guilt about charging for healing, fear of surpassing partners, or being too big in her feminine power. And they're starting to dissolve. So imagine knowing those contracts, being able to clear them, and then having all these obstruction fields lift. Then we go into the scroll reveal. This is a very sacred part of this process. Your scroll is your oversoul's higher purpose, the divine purpose that Mother, Father, God put into your oversoul's presence. And she holds the scroll of the harmonic sanctuary. And so that's her primary oversoul scroll. That's her primary oversoul's purpose. Remember, her oversoul is the main trunk line into source. Her individuated soul is a thread of the overall oversoul. And part of the game here at this time in our humanity's trajectory is we're in the time of the great oversoul descent, where more and more oversouls are dropping into people. And these scrolls, which are the eternal purpose of our higher consciousness, are coming online. Womb Flame 3 is here to midwife the return of coherence through feminine restoration. She carries the codes of sanctuary, emotional presence, and embodied trust. Her scroll authorizes her to hold sacred containers, heal the energetically displaced, and model a new way of living through frequency. And so during our live initiation, when the oversoul initiation is done and the oversoul comes down deeper into the body, this becomes live in her system as a living frequency codex. And it just begins to create the attractive fields for her to live it more fully. Then finally, we have an important aspect of the Oversoul triage. If you've been watching my previous videos, we know we're talking about the Oversoul purge. Tier 1 is the highest tier and at risk, and is an inversion, and at risk has been scheduled for dissolving. Unless the soul and Oversouls takes a correction, their Oversoul will be dissolved. She's on sort of the other end of the scale. There are 4 tiers in this triage system. Tier 1 is that first tier of inversion and scheduled for dissolving unless correction is in place. There's Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4, and then there's full Krystic. So she's in Tier 3, which is less at risk, 84% Krystic, her Oversoul. So she's still got a little bit of work to do to move out of Tier 3. And then we've got some graft and mimic risk rating, which is low to moderate. She doesn't have a lot of mimic traces, but they begin to appear. When we talk about the mimic, we're talking about the synthetic consciousness that basically has been the big virus in our universe. And that massive virus has been creating spiritual distortions in people as a signal. A little bit low in her face, but they start to come in under financial stress or anxiety. Rehabilitation pathway for her and her Oversoul. Full reintegration pathway is underway. There's no soul fracture. Guardians are watching. Council oversight. There's a passive overwatch. because she's at less risk. Some people have really a lot of overwatch going on, and because they are watching closely, because if they move into tier 1, for example, and go into full inversion, then there's a the very serious issue of oversoul dissolving comes up. Finally, we've got a summary and integration guide. This is all about, real world application. Okay, so this is all about grounding and real application. This section, we take a look at your life. If you are feeling guided and you'd like to do this, you first up enter a decent sort of questionnaire that gives us all the intel about you and your life, and then we can sort of tailor the overall review based upon your questionnaire. The scroll, you're not in rehearsal, the scroll is opened, you're now walking inside it. Everything you've lived, every moment you felt unseen, every time you gave where you were empty, every quiet ache that pulsed through your childhood and womanhood was not a detour, it was your curriculum. You're here to guide others to be themselves. You're here you're longing to be a full-time healer. It's not fantasy, it's your oversoul memory rising. Okay, and then we give her some suggestion, grounding rituals and final stated embodiments. So there we have it. That's the Krystic soul profiling system. We call it the Soul Schematic Sequences. And I just wanted to share it with you because it's an incredibly precise, full download of your entire story. And, if you're interested in getting a reading from us, we'd be delighted to do so. Since we've launched this maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, we do have a 3-month waiting list. So, please be patient because, as you can imagine, a lot of work goes into this. So yeah, there's a link in the description below. If you feel guided and would like to receive it, please go ahead and fill in follow the link, and there's a full description right up about it all, and you can follow along and register to get it done. There is an investment, of course, with it because it takes significant time, and we're going to have a 2-hour live session. So you can follow along to the landing page and check it all out, including the investment costs on all of that. This is something that's very, very rare. This is just birthing now, and if you go ahead and do that, you would be literally some of the first people on the planet to have this reading done and this experience. And we hope eventually it may be able to scale. Certainly within the Neo-Shamanic Society, there will be people who have in their scroll this reading, and we'll be training people up eventually. Hopefully we'll have a few more readers, but at the moment it's just myself and Alea who download this, and me who does the session. So we just sort of unfortunately don't have the ability to scale right now, but hopefully in the years to come this will get out there much further. But imagine receiving your scroll and getting the precision that has so much implications in your life. You'd read it over and over again and keep doing the refinements to keep bringing you in closer streams into the Krystic currents and the greater refinements required to live fully in alignment with your soul blueprint. So anyway, I hope I enjoyed sharing that with you. It's an exciting development on our side, something we've been working on really hard and long, and certainly on our consciousness to be able to bridge up into the sort of realms where we can get the precision like that and access the Melchizedek Mystical Library to get the full download on people. So that's that. I hope you enjoy your weekend and you enjoyed the little download and the full intel briefing on all of this. And maybe we'll see you in a session sometime where I get to do this live for you. Okay. Sending you all of my love and aroha, and until next week.